She has been part of the national award-winning projects including Andhadhun, we know that, yes, and has contributed to content for some of the biggest names in the industry like Netflix, RSVP, Viacom 18, and Dharma Productions. Her journey into intimacy coordination began with one question: why isn't anyone trained for this in India? Like many things. Instead of waiting, she became the first one. Today, she leads the movement towards safer, ethical, consent-based filmmaking with titles like Cobalt Blue, Penthouse, Elite India, and The Actress under her belt. IMHS, you know what to do. Please give a huge round of applause to Aastha, Khanna, Bharadwaj. Our final panelist for the day, we were surely saving the best for the last. Our final speaker, our community favorite and one of the brightest, boldest voices in psychosexual education, the incredible Yoshita Dave. Yoshita Dave is a counseling psychologist and educationist with over 30 years of powerhouse experience and has had the rare honor of being trained and mentored by the legendary Dr. Mahindra Watsa, the man who changed how India talks about sex. So the fact that I can say it on the mic today is he's one of the reasons behind it. Based in Mumbai, Yoshita is the founder of Meheryash Counselling Consultancy, where she works as an intimacy educator and coach, helping individuals and couples build safer, more honest, and more pleasure-affirming relationships with themselves and each other. She has worked as a sexual wellness expert with Gizmozwala, currently partners with My Muse India, and continues to push cultural boundaries with compassion, clarity, and humor. Yoshita has spoken at the 30th and 40th International Sexology Conference and was one of the first in India to conduct online psychosexual webinars for women, long before it was mainstream, acceptable, or Instagrammable. Her writing has appeared in Tweak India, Mint Lounge, Midday, Deccan Chronicle, and more. And internationally, she is recognized on Zasha, a global platform honoring 400 Zoroastrian women achievers worldwide. And soon, she'll be adding author to her title, documenting her decades of experience working in one of the most intimate, misunderstood, and taboo corners of human psychology. Her mission is simple, powerful, and much more needed than ever to help people live mentally healthy, intimately safe, emotionally connected, and fully embodied lives. So, do your best. This is my last panelist. Give it up for Yoshita Dave. All right, and you are very familiar with Ruchika, so she will be moderating. Please give it up for Ruchita once again.
Thank you so much. All right, so we are all aware of what the panel discussion is: couples and sex therapy, pleasure coaching, the next big ticket niche. Most of us are couples therapists here, but when it comes to conversation about the relationship, yes, we know what to ask. But when it comes to conversation about their sexual life, I think there is hesitation from the therapist and the client end to even ask, do you hug at night? Do you give a good night kiss or a good morning kiss? And then other things are, I think, way behind to even think and ask and question. So here we are to address something really important. And to start with the basics, Yoshita ma'am, can you tell us the difference between a sexologist, a sex therapist, and a sexual wellness expert? And how should people even decide whom to approach for what specific reasons?
Hi. First of all, thank you, Preetha, for inviting me. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful audience out here. Thank you, Ruchika, for moderating this session. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Likewise, Aastha.
I'm sorry, I'm bad at names. But anyway, yeah, so coming to the question at hand, there is a huge misconception because everyone wants to be known as a sexologist and rather as a sex therapist. But a sexologist is someone who can specialize in the field after MBBS, doing their basic MBBS training, or even after doing gynecology, urology, and psychiatry. But basically, a sexologist is someone who can have a medical degree who can give medications also for certain specific biological induced sexual problems. And coming to a sex therapist or an intimacy coach, which is a better way of putting things rather than sex therapy, because once someone hears sex therapy, there are a whole lot of other images that pop into a person's mind. And I think Preeta is very well aware, and I think most of us, we are getting a lot of these crank calls, and they have some very weird ideas and weird thoughts about what a sex therapist does. So someone who has done, of course, masters in clinical psychology, counseling psychology, and someone who would like to who's comfortable speaking about sex and the sexual problems like maybe vaginismus, erectile dysfunction, and these are most common things. But of course, brain is the biggest sexual organ, more than your genitals. That's where the pleasure is registered in the mind. So that's how psychology comes into space, and that's how you can become a psychosexual expert. A sexual wellness expert is someone who can, after, it's a progression So I am in the sexual wellness space because I have been empaneled with these sexual wellness companies like Gizmoswala, My Muse, and of course there are many more. There is That Sassy Thing and other companies as well, which sells products online. Unfortunately, in India, there is a lot of red tapeism and there is a lot of legalities, whereas having offline sexual wellness stores. We did try to open one in Goa. I'm sure most of you might have read about it online, but unfortunately, and I was unfortunately or fortunately part of it, it had to be shut down because certain permissions were not in place. It was, opened up in quite a bit of a hurry. So yes, these products are available online. And coming to, I'm touching a bit of the legality, although I am not a legal expert, but there is a penal code called Section 292, whereby any these products, they should not have any obscene pictures or labels attached to these products. So it's safe to sell these products online. Offline, unfortunately, there are no stores. Otherwise, abroad, there are a whole lot of these. Even getting them back into India can be a challenge because you never know, you might be caught in customs. So it's always better to order it online. And it's absolutely safe to use and own one and have one in your possession over here. Yeah.
Encouraged.
Yeah, you can add.
Not just safe, it's encouraged.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah.
Yes. So I think now that we're talking about different section of professions in this field, Aastha ma'am, could you also explain the role of an intimacy coordinator and outline the pathways for someone who's interested in entering a field like that?
Sure. So actually, piggybacking off of everything you just said, the way that we like to sort of label people within the sexual wellness, sexual health, mental health space, outside of intimacy coordination, because I very often get interchanged as an intimacy coach while I'm on set, although I am also a Somatica trained intimacy coach. But these words become very interchangeable, so we try to say intimacy director, intimacy coordinator. These people are trained specifically to make intimacy look authentic on screen while not building any real intimacy in the lives of the performers. So it is very different to how intimacy coaching functions, because we are creating chemistry which is fabricated, simulating sex, simulating nudity, simulating relationships to make them look real on camera while making sure that actually no intimacy is taking place in the process, because we want to build the boundaries of professionalism versus personal lives. So that's sort of the massive distinction of intimacy coordination or direction as opposed to intimacy coaching. But I'll also like to sort of add to what you said in the fact that there is very often this overlap that happens, which is that an intimacy coach again gets sort of interswitched with a couples or a relationship counselor who is a licensed medical professional who has done their undergraduate study and their postgraduate study in psychology. A relationship intimacy coach may or may not be somebody that has gone through studying and getting a degree in psychology. They may be somebody that has been trained specifically in intimacy coaching. Myself, case in point, I have a certification as a Somatica method trained intimacy coach. I'm not a counselor. So usually I think the best way to go about it is to reach out to somebody who is a sex therapist, and allowing for them to then kind of find you the right path for whatever your challenges are that you're facing, or whatever your concerns are that you would like to sort of work towards. Because these are such interchangeable names these days when you're talking about it in the media, that very often you get mislabeled. And that can be kind of confusing to a lot of people, I believe. So like a therapist or a coach would never diagnose. So like a therapist, a coach would never diagnose. A therapist may still diagnose a certain issue, but a coach is essentially there to help enhance or work with challenges in a more somatic method fashion.
Right.
I hope that makes some sense, what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think it's so interesting to know how film industry have somebody as a coordinator to take care of things, but we primarily may not have somebody to take care of our personal lives. It is
right?
But okay.
I think we need somebody to take care of things on a film set because we don't have people doing enough of the work they need to do in their private lives.
Fair enough.
The truth of it is that a lot of people don't understand consent and boundaries in their private lives. The truth of it is that they don't fully understand identity of themselves and other people.
Right.
And that is why you need somebody to uphold those spaces for them.
Right.
Okay, we have to pause for a brief second because it's a...
Yes. All right. I have a surprise for you guys, and it's already on the stage. So, but, you know, guys,
Just like.
all right, have you seen those movie scenes in Bollywood when finally the hero realizes that he wants the girl and he runs to the airport? This is the exact reverse of that. Himanshu over here has run from his flight and run to us, and he's made it, be it a tad bit late. So please give it up for our hero of today. It's Himanshu Bhalla, everyone. He is the co-founder of That Sassy Thing, one of India's most fearless, feminist, women-first sexual wellness brands based in New Delhi. Yay! All right. He, along with his partner in business and in life, Sachi Malhotra, Himanshu is on a mission to smash stigma, close the gender pleasure gap, and make sexual wellness as normal as skincare and coffee runs. Who all do their skincare over here? Yes. His aim is that we also have great sex. So thank you, Himanshu. We might need it. About the brand, That Sassy Thing is redefining sexual wellness in India with body-safe products like aloe-based lubricants, full-body massagers, and intimate washes. No intimate?
It's okay. Yeah, we're anti-intimate washes. You don't need that.
All right. Yes, because we are already perfect as it is, the biology. Is that it? Yay, I know a little. I am allowed to be around smart people now. Thank you. Okay. Both India-specific sex education masterclasses and a marketing voice that's equal parts smart, feminist, and delightfully unfiltered. Their Healing from Sexual Trauma masterclass even won a UN award for gender sensitivity in 2024, which is massive. The brand recently raised 6 crore in seed funding and is now available across quick commerce platforms like Blinkit, Zepto, Swiggy, Instamart, and even cafes, because pleasure shouldn't need a pharmacy counter or a whisper. Do not go on your phone right away. We can do it later, all right? Jeez. Before this chapter, Himanshu founded Creativa, a branding consultancy that worked with global heavyweights like British Airways, UNESCO, Penguin Random House, and Ogilvy. So storytelling, brand identity, and communication are his superpowers. Today, here not just as a founder, but as a cultural catalyst in India's sexual wellness revolution, straight down from his flight, literally. Give it up for Himanshu Bhalla, everyone.
I promise I've given a 2-line bio. So,
Same.
thanks so much for having me, and I'm very sorry if I made you guys wait. It was my responsibility. I'm ready to do my walk of shame, but I'm glad that I'm here. And pardon me for my nervousness. I've never done it. It's usually been Sachi, my partner, who's been on stages, but I thought I should get a little bit of my share of the limelight. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you guys.
Thank you so much. So all the things that we have in our goodie bags, one of the most beautiful looking packaging is from him.
Yeah, you guys are getting vibrators. Have fun.
All right, so we just had 2 questions before this, Himanshu. You did not miss a lot. The next question is to you, Yoshita ma'am. As couples and sex therapy and pleasure coaching, how are shifting relationship structures, situationship, long-distance marriages, and commuter marriages impacting emotional closeness and sexual connection today?
Okay. So, first of all, I think there has to be a kind of a understanding, kind of a bond that has to be created living together, first of all. Understanding in the terms of the living situation, okay, it's understandable that one partner has to work maybe abroad or in another state. It depends, whatever the situation may be. But I think a couple has to sit together and kind of formulate how they are going to work out these challenges, the geographical challenges most importantly, because of work or whatever other situation may be. That's why, these commuter marriages, long distance situationships, relationships. Most, I would say, the basic thing that the couple has to understand, that they are a unit. They go as a we. So whatever misunderstanding, miscommunication is created, or circumstantially, or whatever it may be, or maybe third party coming in the way or whatever, be very clear in your communication as a couple, and be very clear about the consent boundaries. There are open marriages, open relationships where, of course, nowadays I think it is known as polyamorous relationships. So if there is an understanding about that, great. If there is not, then please sit down and talk about these things. Be very clear, have very clear defined boundaries of what is permissible in that relationship, in the marriage, situationship, whatever you may call it or label it. But like I said, the most important basis is communication, consent and care. I go as the 3 C's. These are the 3 C's that I go by for any kind of, concepts in therapy, whereby these couples come to me, and this is where I definitely go by these 3 C's, which I think these couples do understand, and they go by that. And of course, like I said, if there are open relationships, open marriages, then be very, very clear about that, and of course the boundaries as well. Anyone else wants to add anything?
No, I think you guys are the experts. I'm here to listen.
Don't elevate trust to that. Anything you can add? I mean, that would be great.
I think communication is always the key, and we often talk about it in when we're building a business around intimacy. Intimacy starts way before someone gets into the bedroom. Mm-hmm. And again, pardon me, I'm not an expert. What we've seen and what we've experienced is, I read it somewhere that it starts with a hello. Yeah, so I think according to me, like boundaries, of course, like especially in the culture that we grew up in, boundaries are extremely blurred. Like when we grew up, I was born and raised in Amritsar, and I know even when I was in college, I'd come to Delhi and I'd come back home, and I'd, my mom would end up asking me all the time, who are you talking to on the phone? Things like that. I think as, between couples also, communication before anything really ends up defining how strong your relationship is in the bedroom and beyond. Like, that's what I'd like to say. Yeah. I hope it made sense.
Yes. Okay, so now initially we were talking about the bifurcation between sexologist and a sex therapist and sexual wellness expert and all of that. But Himanshu, how can sex toys improve connection between partners? And how can sexual wellness brands team up with these different, I would say, parties, sexologists, sex therapists, wellness experts, to offer better, safer, and more informed support to our users?
Okay, so I'm not sure if a lot of you know, we've got free comprehensive sex ed masterclasses. We worked with some of the best sex educators in the country for the sole reason that we're a country that's been raised with little to no sex education. Of course, we're selling vibrators. Of course, we're in the business of selling pleasure toys. But what we realized was that we're so much disconnected with our body. There's so much shame around how to feel good. And, for example, about 6 months ago, we got a testimonial from a user who's been in 15 years of marriage, and she'd never experienced an orgasm, all right? And they used our product. She said, and she'd written that I loved my husband, but I could never get there, and I could never tell him that, all right? So the second and the most important thing is that when we started the brand, the aim was to bridge the pleasure gap, all right? It's biology. Women take longer than men, and in order for anybody to have a great relationship, for two people to be in a great relationship, both of them need to be satisfied. There's so little information around women pleasure for women. Surprisingly enough, the entire anatomy of the clitoris was mapped in 2005. Before that, like, the world didn't know about it. Just imagine. So, why we thought of working with therapists, sex educators, was simply because if people know more about their bodies, if partners know more about their partners' bodies, I think we'll build a world where people are happy. They're happier because, of course, like you may be in a very loving relationship, but sexually you may not be satisfied. And this is why we felt, when Sachi and I were building That Sassy Thing, that a brand in the sexual wellness space will always be incomplete when we are not bringing in credible experts to talk about anatomy, to talk about shame. So, for example, the masterclass you had just mentioned about healing from sexual trauma. See, in India, one woman is molested every 9 minutes. And this is the reported data. I'm sure it's way more. And what happens outside the bedroom greatly impacts how anyone is inside the bedroom. And this is often just brushed aside, like don't talk about your trauma, don't address it even. I'm in a room full of therapists, and I remember when I was going for therapy, my mom, who's a PhD in psychology, strangely enough, was like, what's wrong with you? Right? So sexual shame and sexual trauma is another layer altogether. And, what we feel is that toys help people connect with themselves. And when we work with experts, therapists, sex educators, they just help take away that shame with credible, real knowledge. And that's what we wanted to do. That's why we made those master classes. Unfortunately, Meta, both Instagram and Facebook, does not allow us to put that content freely because it gets banned. Our pages get restricted. But yeah, our vision was always to, and it's been a journey of educating our own selves also. Like, I mean, we often joke about it that my father is a surgeon, my mom has got PhD, and the only sex education I got at home was, beta jab pata chalna hoga chal jayega. Okay. And Sachi, my partner here, who grew up in the US, and her father has lived all over Europe, things were no different. Just 2 days before our wedding, her mom pulled her aside, and I was just in the corner, and I heard her say that, the only sex that she got was keep your husband happy. And I said, I'm already happy. And she lost it. So, I mean, the irony is on us as a society. Just think about it, that we can talk about 100, things that, we're a society that gets offended very easily, right? But imagine we're okay to be in relationships and marriages where, you're not sexually satisfied. And this was the reason we have to, like, in our vision to make sexual wellness as normalized as using skincare, experts have to lead the way. So we as a brand cannot function without partnering with people like you. That's the fact.
Can I add something
Yes,
here?
of course.
Please.
There's a lot of fear and shame also. And of course, women's pleasure is just shoved under the carpet. A woman cannot masturbate. Let me just speak it very openly and honestly out here. Okay? Women's masturbation, no. It's a huge taboo subject. And that is what I did in my webinars. That's why I was a pioneer in creating webinars for women by women on the Gizmos Wala platform. Okay. That's where I used to work earlier. So that was my whole focus, because like Himanshu rightly said, whatever concerns are there in the bedroom, it spills out into your other areas of your life. So if you're not satisfied sexually, if you're not feeling safe within yourself, then definitely things are going to erupt in the other spaces of your life, in your work, in your other familial relationships, everywhere, everything is just going to go downhill. So it is very, very important that this aspect of your life is also taken care of. And of course, a therapist also needs a therapist. There is no shame in admitting to that. Whether you are a sexual wellness, psychosexual therapist, or even a therapist for depression, anxiety, or anything, you really need to go for therapy yourself. You have to therapize yourself to kind of heal and be better productive in healing others as well. Thank you.
Yes, of course, you can add.
Sorry, Aastha.
No, why are you saying sorry? I get to learn so much from you. I'm grateful. The only thing that I mean, to sort of sum it up, I feel like film, storytelling, any kind of way of media, although we live in a world, in a country which has so much censorship. You just very rightly spoke about social media being censored. We face censorship when it comes to what we can put out on in a theater, what we can put on television, what we can and cannot put on OTT, even though there isn't any legal censorship on OTT. Self-censorship by studios is something that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. I feel like infrastructure of the network, whether it is when we're working with companies like That Sassy Thing, or we're working with sex educators that are on social media, or we're working with mental health professionals that are doctors or psychologists, or anybody that I would say is an ally in the sexual wellness, sexual health, mental health space, are all people that are in some way or form creating the little ripples that are required to de-shamify conversation about sex. The taboo around it, the fear, the shame that you very rightly spoke about. So this entire sort of infrastructure is in a way helping each one of us move a little bit more forward in the initiatives that we're all taking. Whether it is my work as a somatica professional, like a somatica method coach, it sort of leans so beautifully into my work and in intimacy direction, because I get to actually see and hear real stories and hear real narratives of people, which then I'm able to lean into the choreography that we're trying to show on camera, so that we can take those stories into people's bedrooms, into their homes, in ways that will make it sort of that much easier for them to communicate, that much easier for them to discuss something that in its inherent sense holds a lot of judgment.
Be a catalyst.
So if we can all be catalysts to one another, that's the infrastructure that we're looking to build in our own sort of ways, which is why it makes sense that whether you're a pleasure toy company, whether you're a mental health professional, whether you're working in intimacy coordination, we're all sort of helping each other, and we're all sort of pushing each other's initiatives a little bit more forward in the space that we're in.
Right. A very interesting point. I will digress it a little to ask something else. So we're all aware how everyday work stress or other factors affect our sex life. So if we have to talk about reclaiming intimacy in bed, what are some factors that could contribute to a great sex life, but something that is rarely talked about?
Working out.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. If you're a physically active human being, it makes a huge difference in the way you feel pleasure, the way you perform for someone else so they can experience pleasure, how you feel about yourself. Because like she said so rightly, the pleasure's actually for the brain. And how you see yourself makes a huge difference in how you perform any form of intimacy, whether or not it is sexual. I think one of the biggest myths is that intimacy or any form of sort of intimate interaction has to, in some way or form, be sexual in nature. But even without that, I think working out, the endorphins that come from it, the hormonal changes that come from being physically active make a huge difference.
So besides the physical activity, which Aastha rightly pointed out to, I would put it as creating a kind of love language. Mm-hmm. Now, not just saying I love you all the time, but doing little things for your partner. Maybe just kind of running an errand for your partner. Maybe if you have kids, then taking the kids to school, or attending the school PTA meetings, whatever it may be, or even helping out with the elders in the family. I mean, it's a whole lot of things.
The 5 love languages.
Yeah, and not only physical activity, love language, but also having couple time, we time. Maybe you could kind of, if you cannot verbally communicate and express yourself, and maybe very recently a client has done this, and I think we also learn a lot from our clients. You kind of create an Excel sheet, and there you put down all the points. And I think writing is a very good way of communicating as well, not only verbally, but writing also. So thereby you can talk about the kind of desires that you're wanting to play out, maybe some kind of kinks, fetishes. Besides that, and even other any kind of conflicts which you cannot, there is fear and things like that. How can I tell him or her, whatever it may be? It can be in the heterosexual relationship. It can be someone from the LGBTQ community. So basically, partnered relationships. How can I express myself? If one cannot express themselves verbally, then writing is a very good exercise. Like I said, you can create an Excel sheet also. So yeah, these are the three main things that, kind of you can clear out your conflicts, stress, anxiety, whatever else. Anything else?
I actually, off the top of my head, have one more thing to add, which is spending time masturbating.
Yes, mutual masturbation.
Whether it's mutual or not, because I would like to also take into account, since we're in a room full of psychologists, we're not only talking about intimacy when it comes to people that are partnered. We're talking about intimacy for any human being, because pleasure is not something that is only available to or accessible to or okay for people that are partnered in some way or another. And also, it's not gendered. So I feel like exploring your own body is a hugely important sort of space to or time to give yourself as a human being, because a lot of us don't realize what our pleasure centers are, because the only pleasure centers we talk about are things that we've heard of in the media, because that's all that's experienced, and it is not encouraged in our homes for us to explore our own bodies. So it becomes extremely important for us to do that, and that's actually very de-stressing.
Yes.
It's a way of giving yourself love. Very interesting to say to make skincare akin to giving yourself pleasure, because skincare is pleasureful for a lot of people. It is a way of sort of people say it's like therapy. It's the time that they take to decompress, think about the day. But very few people will put a mirror in front of their bodies, stay completely clothless, and actually explore their own bodies for every nook and cranny that their body has, for every wrinkle that their body has, for every stretch mark, and give it love. And I feel like that goes a long way as well.
Yeah, I think this is very well said. I just go back to the point you made previously, Aastha. I was seeing the difference in the celebrity interviews that are happening right now versus what used to happen maybe like 4 years ago. I was watching this recent interview on London Top. It was a Marathi actress, I've forgotten her name, and she was... Oh, yes. And she was talking about the entire process of how the intimacy coordinator made it very comfortable for them. Go back go back 3 years in time or 2 years in time, and if an actress was asked by an interviewer about an intimate scene, it would make everyone uncomfortable. So thanks to people like you, it's becoming more approachable and acceptable, because when people accept that they're doing it, they're doing intimate scenes on camera in real interviews, that makes a huge change. Now, to answer this specific question, I think too much information, but what has worked for us is, one, taking good amount of sleep. The second thing is not binge watching OTT. Yeah, I do think that it's not talked about enough, especially when you come home after a long day, you worked 10, 11 hours, and sometimes the only outlet you feel you have is just, binge watching and then sleeping. And I think that's been a game changer when we've decided that not more than 30 minutes, and then it's V time. No, whatever that is.
I just want to say, entertainment is the poorest form of connection that you can find. It is actually the poorest way to connect with somebody. Education is a much better way to connect with somebody. Enlightenment is a better way to connect with somebody. Entertainment is actually the poorest thing. If two people are sitting together and holding hands and watching a movie, they're not connecting. if they're learning something together, if they're doing something fun, if they're doing a skill, if they've gone even like to on a date to sort of learn how to paint, they've actually connected a lot more in the process.
Hiking.
Or anything, any activity which allows you to
Yes.
sort of
Bond.
learn a little more about each other, or a completely different skill. You learn a lot more about one another in that process. You bond a lot more. So it's extremely important for intimacy to understand that binge watching is not the right way to go.
Binge watching, but doom scrolling also on your phone endlessly. And another myth over here that comes to my mind is that sexual activity happens only at night. No, in fact, sexual activity in the morning is far more better, and it enhances the mood for the day. So if you could probably get up a little earlier than whatever, before going to work, definitely it helps. Rather than, because at the end of the day, you're really tired, you're really spent, and you're really not in the mood. Maybe you're carrying on, the baggage from the office. That's, of course, another topic to talk about. But, you cannot shut your brain off from whatever has happened during the day. I think that's not a very good time to have sex.
And
So
then your
it's-
bosses would know why you're so happy. Having a great day at work.
But I think that's
Oh, yeah,
good
did
for
what?
you.
No, don't say sorry. You're absolutely right.
I think that's good for your boss. You're just being more productive.
Yeah.
XYZ is the reason.
Capitalism. Have sex in the morning. Be better at work.
But I'll add to what Aastha was saying, how I've been working with newer couples who have very creative date ideas, like going for pottery. I myself have went out on a, drafting date where it took us 6 hours to make one of those doormats, but it was fun.
Oh, that's
And
great.
like how you said, hiking and painting and playing cards, these fun activities. So we have one last question where I would want all of your viewpoints in very different perspectives, one as a brand owner, two in the field of education and training, and you probably in the field of film industry. So the question is, from your vantage point as a sexual wellness person, I'm just giving a category, how are Indian women redefining sexual independence in a society that still thinks it is a taboo?
Okay. So there's a short answer and there's a long answer. The short answer is things are changing. The long answer is they're not changing at the pace they should have, and I'll try and decode it. If it was a business conference, I would have said, oh, things are skyrocketing everywhere. That's not the case, and we'll tell you why. 90% of the money in the Indian banks is controlled by men. So when it comes to, and anything, the products that we deal in are still looked at as a want and not a need, all right? So if I go back about 8 months in time, and this is quick commerce data, I'll tell you, the number of, the ratio of sexual wellness toys sold for women versus men was 70 and 30. 70% for men, 70% for women, 30% for men. 8 months down the line today, the ratio has changed to 80-20, 80% men and 20% women. Yes, things are changing, but I do think we're a long way from saying women still have to fight a lot. But what really keeps us going in building whatever we're trying to build is the fact that there are a lot of women out there who are taking that first step to take charge of their pleasure, all right? There's a lot of conversation around consent, around boundaries, around self-pleasure, and around independence. But I think things will change a lot faster if we accelerate the rate at which women become more financially independent. The society, they make or they break their way through to build an equal society. So yeah, things are changing. I wouldn't deny it. But the pace at which they're changing is not as fast as business owners we would have expected. Now, you may say this is capitalistic thinking, and I'd accept it, but I'd still say that when we walk into rooms and we walk into investor boardrooms where we are told that, guys, you're building for women's pleasure is still a niche, and it's discouraging at the end of the day. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'd like to say. But things are changing for sure, and I think the inflection point will happen when businesses like us try to look beyond Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Pune, Chennai, Hyderabad. I think that's some work that we have to do, because the moment we talk about, when I'm trying to answer this question, I'm also answering this from a very limited experience of working with English-speaking metro living audiences. But yeah, there's some work for us to do as well. We did try to do, like for example, the master classes. One of the master classes we made was in Hindi and English, and it was on consent. But we haven't done a lot of it. We need to do a lot of it. Things are changing, but we're yet to see that compounding effect. That's my answer.
Okay. In my practice, I think ever since the pandemic, there has been a huge change. Women do seek help, not only in partnered relationships, but even for self-pleasure. And I think by my webinars, there was a lot of awareness that have been created. And not only my webinars, I have spoken at conferences as well. And you are speaking from that sassy thing, a point of this thing. But you'll be surprised, there were far more products for women in Gizmos Wala and now with My Muse. And definitely women are reaching out, but of course the costs are very prohibitive, mainly because some products have to be imported, and some of course they are made in India. And definitely there is a change, but yes, Himanshu rightly said, the economic aspect is a hindrance, but those who realize, yes, and it's only metro specific, like Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad, Chennai. Yes, there is a sexual wellness offline store in Coimbatore, which has black curtains on it. And I have met that business owner as well. But of course, it's a very small market. Of course, he sells online as well. But beyond that, I think we definitely do need offline stores to kind of reach out more to the masses. And of course, in tier 2 cities and all. But of course, that's a long way ahead for our Indian society. Otherwise, like I said, abroad, it's very openly sold and there is no problem at all. And yeah, the things are definitely changing, but only thing is there are a lot of these influencers online who are kind of giving out a lot of wrong information. So be very wary. Of course, I'm just talking to a very small audience, but to a larger audience, I would definitely like to put this out there, but be very wary, be very kind of well informed about who is disseminating that particular kind of information. Yes, Aastha.
I can picture people and their reels as you speak, going, oh my God, this is out there. 3 million people have watched this. But oh my God, right? But here's the bit. So the short answer is we have a very long way to go. And we should not even consider celebrating at this point. We should just be like, okay, that was a good day at work, but you have 50 years of work left. So that is the amount that I mean, like, if I was to proportionately speak about the kind of, the sort of ideal world that we would want to see, as opposed to what we do see in our little bubbles that we are living in today, there's a lot of work to be done. I just want to say, since I am told to speak from the perspective of the films, last year, a film called Animal came out. I don't think I have to continue the point. We're living in a world where for every 4 steps that we take or 2 steps that we take forward, there is double the number of steps that we're able to take backward, and the lapse in that judgment is so quick. It's one event. It's one film. It's one moment when one politician says something and you align with them. It's one moment of prioritizing something that might seem like the requirement of the moment, and actually not having a vision for what it might look like in the future. So we work really, really, really hard to push the envelope, and it snaps back like a rubber band really, really quickly. Sadly, but it's extremely important for us as people that are working in this space to acknowledge that and take accountability for that for the rest of the world that we're living in. Because if we're sitting in our own cushy little bubbles and we're not actually asking for accountability outside of our own space and going, but I won't go and put my money and watch a film like Animal because I don't align with it, the gaze won't change. The conversations won't change. And the reason they won't change is because if the makers are making it and the consumers are consuming it, who are you going to go and fight with? We have issues when we're talking about pleasure. Firstly, it's not gendered, in my opinion. I do agree that women's pleasure has been something that needed to be addressed, and thankfully people like you have been doing it for a while now. But I feel like pleasure in general, being the taboo that it is, this is my longer answer, so bear with me, is a conversation that needs to be had across board, across all ages. It needs to be considered outside of the little bubbles that we're living in. And the bubbles are not just Mumbai and Delhi, and the bubbles are our own rooms, our own people, our own Instagram algorithm, our own political alignments. Yeah. So outside of that bubble, there's a lot of work to be done. So I don't believe in celebrating all of the, I mean, of course, yes, great, pat on our backs for all of the things that we've been able to do, but there's a very, very long way to go.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
And I just want to add like one little bit. Why is the, your question was specifically around how are we changing things for women, and I'd just like to add, we're still fighting. Any brand, even the biggest multi-billion-dollar brands, can advertise time delay condoms. No problem. But you can't advertise women's pleasure. When we talk about business in particular, any direct-to-consumer brand, online brand, can scale their meta advertising through 10 to 12 ads. On an average, we have to make about 170 to 200 ads in a month. That's how pleasure for women has been censored. The last and the most important point I was trying to make was, how does commerce work? When a platform starts seeing more traction for products for a certain gender, they start showing more of that in their first few scrolls. So when you go on to quick commerce and suddenly all you see is sleeves for men, you realize there also women's pleasure is being pushed down, because that's where men's pleasure is where most of the money is. And I'd request, I believe there'll be 100, 150, 200 people sitting here. I'm bad with numbers, but all of you can bring this change if you go out there, create content, learn from fellow credible therapists, psychologists. You guys can bring about a lot of change, because I do think that while there's a lot of misinformation, there are also credible people out there which are in fewer numbers. And we need to get out of our rooms where we discuss, oh my God, there's so much misinformation. And I've worked, in my previous stint, I worked with various UN bodies, and I realized that a lot of the conversations never left the rooms. That has to happen, because if that doesn't happen, the misinformation, the sensationalism, and like all the, oh my God, can you believe this, will always trump over credible information. So yeah, I mean, you guys can make a big, big change. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you so much for such an interesting conversation. I know we can go on and on, but we can have 2 questions and then quickly break for tea.
So given that we still are in a world where vibrators are sold as facial massagers and head massagers, we definitely need a podium where conversations can be had very openly. But pendulum does tend to always go the other side very violently too. So what I wanted to know is there any concern to be had, or like a little bit of an eye to be had also to the fact that while India is still very backward, but at least abroad, there's been a lot of conversation on fetish, right? And it's always like, we listen, we don't judge. But a lot of fetishes come from severe traumas. So where is that balance point of we listen and we don't judge, your fetish is your fetish, go for it. But a lot of things come from, for example, a lot of rape fantasies come from victims of abuse who are not probably working on the abuse, and they're playing it out to change the narrative. Similarly, a lot of this happens where men who feel extremely insecure, it's not gender specific, but just giving example, that who are extremely insecure, don't feel that they're able to verbalize and find their grounding in the world, so they're into humiliation fantasies. And while we don't want to judge anybody, is there like a balance that needs to be had where you need to understand that, okay, let's also try and understand where our fantasies are coming from, where our fetishes are coming from?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. First things first. As somebody who is working with somebody that has a challenge around a fetish that they might have, or anybody that you meet in life might have a fetish, the first thing you don't do is you don't shame them for it. The minute that you turn around and label somebody for having a fetish based on their trauma, you're shaming them for it. So you don't do that. If a person is has a certain desire, has a certain fetish, has a certain kink, and they feel that certain fetish sort of stems in some way or form with a childhood trauma or a past trauma that they have, that's work that they need to do in their room with their therapist. That has absolutely nothing to do with their partner. If their partner would like to provide them with pleasure and would like to get pleasure in return, then that partner needs to either be okay with or enjoy the same kinks, lean into experiencing new kinks, or then find themselves somebody who they align with, which is why a dom would probably find a sub, which is why somebody who has a humiliation fetish would find a dom. The moment that somebody comes up to you, especially the moment that if your own partner comes up to you and says, this is a fetish that I have, and then you say, is this based on some kind of trauma? Do you need to go to a doctor? You're shaming them. You're making it harder for them to come out and experience something that they would like to experience. At the end of the day, they want to experience pleasure, however way that they want to experience pleasure can look very different for each human being. I'll just give you a very sort of mild example. Even having sex extremely vanilla is a form of kink. Your most basic missionary position and wanting for things to look exactly as romantic as they would in the movies is a form of kink. So saying that someone who's kinky and therefore is a bit odd is not true. Every form of pleasure is a version of kink. It's a version of wanting your desire a certain kind of way. It's like if I want to eat food and I wanted a different kind of cuisine, you're not going to kill me for it. I like things more spicy, I like things less spicy, I like them bland, I like them sweet, I'm allowed to.
I think I'd add over here that I think most of us humans, I think 95% I would say, do have some kind of kinks which they are not being able to kind of express and talk about because of shaming.
Or have not even discovered.
Yes.
Because of the shame around it.
Absolutely. And going beyond your question, I think another very pertinent thing in our Indian society is that you have a mental health issue, iski shaadi kara lo. शादी हो गई, शादी ठीक नहीं चल रही है, बच्चा कर लो. अरे dude, first please heal yourself. Feel better about yourself. Feel safer in your mind and your body. Then only will you, like, you know, there is that saying, how can you serve from an empty cup? It's only after you are healed with whatever issues, you know, like you said, they've been traumatized or whatever it is, work on those aspects and then think about getting into a relationship or whatever it is.
I just have like a very little thing to stay here. The next masterclass we're working on is actually decoding kinks, because what we realize is that most of the people have this idea that when you wear leather pants and you have a whip in your hand, that's when you're kinky. But you know, we're starting with like hands, feet, you know, things like that. I mean, that's our perspective. I'm sure like your question, yeah, everything. Your question was very nuanced. I think that requires a lot of, that should be a session in itself.
Absolutely.
But as a business, that's a little bit we're trying to do, because the word kinky itself has been like, oh my God. But no, as vanilla, as you know, something like a missionary position, which is technically not vanilla, because vanilla itself is such a exotic plant, that's kinky. Yeah, right. So, yeah. So we need to like rewire ourselves and really redefine what kinky is, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. We will have to cut the questions, guys. You can catch them later, but we have presentations. I'll just say one more thing. Now that we were talking about kink, there is this wonderful show on Netflix called How to Build a Sex Room. Please watch it, not because to know what it is, but because to know how different types of partners, couples, are really understanding what kind of pleasure they would like. And this person is, I think, an architect or an interior designer who really understands their story and builds a room where they can actually feel and make love. And it is not just intercourse.
So I'm going to be doing a talk tomorrow online with the Association of Designers India. So I'm going to talk about design and intimacy. Just FYI.
Very interesting.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much. Over to... Oh, wait, 1 second. We forgot certifications.
Yes. Thank you so much for lifting taboo and doing it with so much style. Thank you for letting us know that female orgasm is not a myth. And on that note, thank you Himanshu and Sachi for the present in our goodie bags. Please give it up for our lovely panel, the final panel that ended it so strong and has got us motivated for tomorrow. Yes? Lovely. All right, we'd like to felicitate our lovely guests.